My grandfather received the Congressional Medal of Honor in World War II. He was a radio operator on board a B-29 Superfortress. One of his jobs was to drop a phosphorus flare. Phosphorus burns 2,000 degrees. It'll burn through steel. It'll burn underwater. They hit an air pocket. The bomb went back up into the plane, ignited in his face. And instead of trying to save himself, he actually grabbed the bomb like a football, marched it all the way to the front of the plane, threw it out of the front of the plane. And it started this series of very, very unlikely events that got him the Medal of Honor in a week. It was a stolen medal from Pearl Harbor because it was the only one in the Pacific. But he was horribly burned. He lived through the war, mostly because my grandmother, when she came back, kissed him, said welcome home, and it gave him the will to live. But he was very much like Phantom of the Opera, like the right side of his body completely burned, his arm fused in place. And I remember he said to me, I held his medal when I was like 7 years old, and not knowing at the time what this would mean later on, but he said over my shoulder, freedom isn't free. And he bore the marks of this statement. But it did lead me later on in life, after his funeral, to ask that question of what would I be able to do this? What I learned in that exploration, talking to some of the other members of the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, because the Medal of Honor is like these guys that do these superhuman, things in like the blink of an eye without thinking twice. And where does that happen? What I learned, my grandfather, his dad died. He had to provide for the family when he was 11. He signed up so his brothers wouldn't have to. I remember asking Gary Luttrell, the medal, who's at the time president of the Medal of Honor Society, like, how do you make this decision? And the idea is that you don't. You don't. Whatever you are up to that moment manifests. Yeah. So it's actually about in the preparation of what has life taught you to become. So when there's moments of these great pressure and stakes, my grandfather had lived his whole life just sacrificing himself for the people he loved. That's what he did. And so when it was a moment of a bomb on the floor, what do? You pick it up and you try to save the people around you. That's just who you are. So now, having said that, if I were just to keep talking about this story, I was also on a Southwest flight once, and this very old guy started having a seizure and was on the floor beside me. And by the way, we had just taken off, and that plane did not turn around or land. So Southwest will get you there dead or alive, I guess. But I'm like, oh, we don't care. But then someone helped, and then someone else helped, and this guy's. And the first thing that went through my mind, literally the first conscious thought, was well, he's really old and hasn't taken care of himself. I'm like, oh my God, John, your granddad's a Medal of Honor recipient. And so I realized I probably wouldn't do anything. A lot of people helped before me. I don't know what I would do here. I would crowd so maybe I'm a storyteller, and that DNA skipped a generation. Right. I learned that day. I do think that what I find very interesting is you take these heroic moments, they're actually forged over a long period of time, and you can kind of trace, whether it's George Washington or my grandfather or Churchill or whoever, these moments in their lives are developed over a long period of time. Of course. And so that's what I learned. I still feel bad about that guy. He was fine. He made it through once we landed in New Orleans.
And, did they still do the meal service or the peanuts?
They kind of did everything as if it didn't happen at all. Him? They're sir? Nothing against, I love Southwest, but they're going to get you there.
They're going to get you there. It's like, what's the old FedEx ad? When you absolutely positively have to be there overnight.
Yeah, exactly. Even if the guy beside you dies.
Yeah. What are you waiting for, man? Where's the story, at least? Or maybe it's not a film, but your pops, dude. Phosphorus bomb, runs it out of the plane.
To go on that rabbit trail, so they're the lead plane. Their plane was called the City of Los Angeles, and it's the Pathfinder. Mm-hmm. So they're leading 800 planes. LeMay, which is kind of like the Patton of the Pacific.
Like Curtis?
Curtis LeMay, yeah. Was you never turn around. Mission over the man, you never turn around. Mm. Well, there was a colonel on board when this happened, and they started to descend because the plane was filled with smoke. He marched it to the front of the plane, threw it out over the colonel's shoulder, collapsed in flames. The colonel was so moved by what he saw that he said, I don't care if they court-martial me, turn this plane around right now. So they drop out, and we're going to try to save this man's life because I've never seen anything like this. So the airstrip at Iwo Jima had just opened. There was still basically conflict at Iwo Jima, and so they were actually fired upon as they landed at Iwo Jima. The pilot of the plane and that colonel wrote the citation for the Congressional Medal of Honor that night. Normally, it takes about a year. It's like a trial to say, does this act merit above and beyond the call of duty.
What was his name, your pop?
Red Erwin. Henry Eugene Erwin, they called him Red Erwin. And as my granddad. And basically, they wake LeMay up at 5 in the morning on Guam, which is its own act of courage. He was so moved by what he read that he used his abrasiveness to get it to Washington. Well, all this happened the day FDR died. So it's Truman's first day in office.
Oh, man.
Truman said basically, I'd rather have the Congressional Medal of Honor than be president of the United States. So here comes this first day in office. Here comes this hero in the Pacific, this guy that threw this bomb out. And he gets it through Congress in one day, which is never, because they all thought he was going to die. It never happened before. So then it's like, you were going to give the Medal of Honor posthumously to this guy. And LeMay says, no, I want to pin a Medal of Honor on this kid's neck. Well, there's only one Medal of Honor in the Pacific. When you get a Medal of Honor, you get your real one, you get a display medal. So there's one display medal. It's in a general's display case at Pearl Harbor. So they strip down a B-29. It's ultra long flight from Guam, the secret mission. They land. The general's not there. They break into his office. They can't find the key. They smash the display case, steal the medal.
You've got to be kidding me.
Dead serious.
Michael Gamez had a knack for fixing things and wanted to be an automotive technician. So he applied for a work ethic scholarship from MicroWorks. Well, today, Michael Gamez is living his best life. He's got himself an AI-proof, 6-figure job doing something he loves. More importantly, he's got the security he needs to start the family he always dreamed of having. Be like Michael Gamez. Skip the debt. Learn a skill that's in demand. Apply for a work ethic scholarship today at microworks.org.
All this happens when my grandfather's brother was in Saipan, and LeMay asked him, what can I do for you? He's like, I'd like to see my brother. And it was Tyrone Powers, the actor, was doing like a tour, and he was a pilot. So he flew my granddad's brother to his bedside. He didn't recognize my granddad because he was so burned, which started this fear of like, he was married 3 months before the war, really good looking guy. What's my wife going to think? LeMay gets this medal, they steal it, they scratch my grandfather's name in the back of it, and they pin it on his neck a week after it happened, which has never happened before. And then my granddad endured like 47 surgeries or something, came back 87 pounds, clinging to life. The guy in the burn ward beside him, his wife came in, was so horrified by what she saw. So it's like, that's not my husband. And she left. The guy was dead of a broken heart the next morning. So my granddad was terrified of this. Oh. My grandmother comes in, having only received a telegram that he was injured. Married 3 months before the war. He goes away, this super good looking guy, looked like Matt Damon. He comes back, shell of a person. She comes in, he clutched the bomb like this. So the whole right side of his face. She finds the only unburned portion of his cheek, kisses him and says, welcome home, I love you. That gave him the will to live. And they had 5 kids all after. Well, there he is. That's my granddad.
So that's holy crap, dude. That's like Audie Murphy.
So the story of like, but the idea of, to go above and beyond the call of duty and what that means, to do more than is required of you is how it...
That's Red.
That's Red Erwin, my granddad, yeah.
What are you waiting for, dude?
Technology.
What are you waiting for?
There's only one flying.
What do you need,
B-29.
AI? Do you need some AI? Because we got it.
No, we do. Yeah, my show, House of David, is one of the first shows to really integrate fully a lot of new technology. But we're waiting on. I got to put 800 B-29s up in the air, so I've got time. That would be the ultimate story.
You must.
Okay, if there's anything I've taken from this is Washington opens well, I have to do my granddad's story.
You have to, dude. I mean,
it's a great story.
I'm just looking at your resume. You've got permission. You can do pretty much whatever you want.
I hope so.
But I mean, how many people in your position actually have that bit of genealogy?
Well, also, here's the thing of like the stories that we listen to, the books we read. I would go over, my grandfather had like a photographic memory. He had a stroke late in his life. I would go over and stay with him.
How long did he live?
He lived 2001. I was 19 years old. And I did not listen to his stories. Like, I loved him and we would talk, but I did not listen. And it was not until his funeral that I was sitting there, and it was like, he wanted to be buried in Birmingham, where he was from. It was very cloudy, very rainy, cold, and there were like generals and all these people, and then there was a bomber from the 20th Air Force that found its way under the cloud line and tipped its wings, and then there were these 2 officers playing taps in echoing, and I remember going up to one of them and saying, thank you for what you're doing for our family. I'm so sorry you have to stand out here in the rain, sleet, and they said, no, this is your grandfather is one of our nation's heroes. This is our honor. And it just flipped a switch of curiosity of like, what did I miss? So I got to go all over the country and find his only living crew members and eyewitnesses and talk to them and listen. And
absolute blessing.
And one of them said he didn't save 11 guys. He saved generations of people. And so, and then a long time was like, what does this mean for me of going above and beyond the call of duty? For me, it's just do the best you can, do more than is required of you. So after he died, I interviewed my grandmother and I just said, what did you know? All she knew was he had been injured. That's it. Okay, now you come in.
Dude, it's her movie.
87 pounds, 45 surgeries already, arm fused in place, horrific burns. Like I've got a picture on my mantle with him because he went and saw the presidents with JFK, and he would turn like this for photos, because his face was so burned. And I said, basically, how did you choose to stay? Like how? Especially in this kind of like, Kardashian culture we live in now, like how do you do it? She couldn't understand the question. Like, she's just like, I don't understand. How would I not? Why would I? That was my husband. He's my husband. Like, there was no other option.
Right. So the same quality in Red that really gives him no choice but to pick up the phosphorus bomb and run to the front is the same quality in her.
Yeah.
I don't want any credit, but maybe a walk-on.
If this is my next movie, it happened
is your
right
next
here.
movie. Look, it's called The Kiss.
Yeah.
It's told through Betty's point of view.
Huh.
It's got all the excitement you need, but everything you said, it's like, yes, his bravery, his moment.
Oh,
that
yeah,
thing,
but the real strength, man.
But her walking in and
I've
kissing
always
the
felt
one
like-
part of his face that's not peeling off, dude. You there won't be a dry eye in the house.
And just said, welcome home, I love you. And that's what gave him the will to live.
Man,
And they had
that's your
5
movie.
kids, all after the war, my dad being the second. Wow. He worked at the VA hospital for 30 years helping other veterans get their get their benefits. Ugh. And yeah, I've just, it's very moving to me. It's certainly the story that has driven my film career, is to have those awestruck moments where you say, how does someone do that? And then to try to cipher their life to answer that question. That's the idea. And I do love when they say a filmmaker finds their story and tells it over and over again. I love adaptations of true stories. And so yeah, I always thought Continuing Washington. But maybe, that he's dead.
He's gone, man. He's on money.
I can get there. Maybe it's time for my granddad's story. And if it did, it happened right here.
Grief, dude. It's so good.
Like us and subscribe before you go. Before you go. Do 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 dum.